Hello everyone, my name is Haritha Rajeev, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Albertian College Autonomous. So today we are going to explain about the SDLC development model. So what do you mean by an SDLC? SDLC means Software Development Life Cycle. Software development life cycle means when you create a software, it contains different steps or different phases. So when you going to develop any software or system, it will go through different phases. So all these phases are included in software development life cycle. So there are different models are there in the software development life cycle. Here we are going to explain about the V model and iterative model. So, software development lifecycle is an extremely vast and full of various development and testing activities. It includes methodologies, techniques, tools, and more. It engages strong planning as well as management, computation, plan, and preparation. So, the SDLC contains different stages. It also contains the methodology. Methodology means different steps included in the software development lifecycle, and it is a techniques and tools are used to identify the operations are included in each phases. And it also after the completing if you complete the cycle and the iteration as per the requirement, the application gets developed successfully. That means if you develop a system or any software, after completing the phases we will get the final output. So we must do the all system, all activities, that means all phases will come after frequently after one another. And this model is also a division of SDLC, that means Software Development Life Cycle. In this chapter, we will learn about the V model and iterative model. SDLC iterative model means this is the popular iterative model, gives an exact performance of a development of software as a life cycle. So it will give an iteration of a particular operation. It primarily focuses on preliminary growth and design and then gains momentum slowly with more complexity as well as meet requirements until the final software is built entirely. So it is a continuous process. So when you go to developing a software, it will go through first iteration, and after the first iteration, the developer will deliver the product to customer, and the customer from the customer we can get the feedback. It will be a positive feedback or negative feedback. From the negative feedback, the developer will rearrange the system into new model. So basically the iterative development model is an approach of segmenting any large software development process into small portions. So our developing process is a large process. So the process can be divided into single steps, and each steps can be developed individually, and after completing individual project, it will combine and produce the final output. This type of SDLC model does not target to establish a complete specification plan. That means it must not contain a specific plan. As an alternative, this model is dedicatedly designed to start with minimum requirements, specifying as well as implementing only a part of the software. The prototype is then further reviewed for additional requirement, and the practice then takes an iterative form to create a new version of the application. So we cannot develop a system based on the iterative model in the first attempt, because after the first iteration it will definitely get a negative feedback. So after the one iteration, the feedback will fetched by the developer, and based on that feedback it will rearrange the system and develop a new system. So we cannot get the final output in one iteration. This is one of the drawback of iterative model. And the different phases of iterative models are, it contains 4 phases mainly. The first phase is requirement phase, and the second phase is design phase, third phase is implementation and test, and the final phase is review phase. In the first phase, that means requirement phase, In the requirement phase of software development, the system-related information is gathered and analyzed. In the requirement phase, it is the first phase. In this phase, the developer will fetch the data from the customer. That means the requirement must be fetched by the developer. Based on that requirement, the developer will develop the system. The collected requirements are then planned accordingly for developing the system. So, the collected requirements are used by the developer to develop the system. And the next phase is design phase. In this design phase, the software solution is prepared to meet the necessities for the design, and the system design may be a new one or the extension of previous build one. In design phase, based on the requirement, the developer will design the entire process. That means the requirement documentation format converted into the structural format. Based on that structure, the developer will develop the entire system. So, the developer can easily understand the entire process of that particular development process. In the implementation as well as the test phase, the system is developed by coding and building the user interface and the module, which is then incorporated and tested. After designing the particular model, we can implement the system. That means we can convert the logical structure into coded form. That means the source code will be created in the implementation phase. After creating the source code, it will tested by using a unit testing or integration testing. In unit testing, each module can be tested separately. Integration testing means after finishing the unit testing, the modules can be integrated and tested integratedly. So, this is the integration testing. These two testing are developed in implementation and testing phase. And the next phase is review phase. After developing the project, review phase is where the software is estimated and checked as per the current requirement. After developing the software, it must check the specific requirement. That means if the system is needs to specify specific requirements or not, it will satisfy the particular requirements by the customer, and then further requirements are reviewed and discussed and reviewed to propose for an update in the next iteration. So, if you get any suggestion from the end user or any customer, it will fetch by the developer and rearrange the entire model. So, these are the 4 phases in iterative model. At every stage, the cycle of this model, the decision is taken if the system is created by the iteration or cycle will be rejected or not, or need to process further for next cycle, which is technically termed as incremental prototyping. And ultimately, a situation will come in which by implementing this model, the system requirements get complete and then the software can be distributed or delivered to the customer. So, it contains different cycles. That means we cannot get the final result in the first cycle because it is an iterative model. Iterative model means it will go through different cycles. So, we must go through the different cycle for getting the final output. This is the structure of iterative model. The first phase is planning phase. In planning phase, it will collect the requirement, and next phase is analysis and design. And after that analysis and design, that means we must design the specific logistic structure of a model, and after that the testing phase is next phase, and the last phase is evaluation. So, this must be continuously processing. So, SDLC iterative model is an iterative process. The main use of iterative model is here the system requirement can be classified and understood. A primary necessity of the system can be defined. At the same time, some system working can be improved with the development process. And next use is if a new technology needs prior understanding, this model can be helpful to know the latest technology and increment or update the model accordingly. So, if the any suggestions of new technology added, then we can use the iterative model, because after the first iteration, we must fetch the needs, and also based on that needs, we must rearrange the specific model. And the next one is this model is also useful when there are high risk in the system characteristics and goals. And the next use is situations where resources with required skill sets are not accessible and the system need to be developed on a contract basis, and choosing this model in a suitable decision. And these are some benefits of iterative model. That means produces working system rapidly and before time throughout the software development life cycle, and it provide more and more flexible and enhanced based on requirements, and simple to test as well as repair in a small iteration. Next model is V model. So we all know what are the phases occur in the software development life cycle. In V model, the same phases are occur frequently. So SDLC V model, the software development life cycle has various models which follow a different approach to culminate a prototype to a successful product. Oh, so in the previous chapter, we must already studied about the prototyping and other type of model. Usually, this model is pronounced and V model. This model is a quite different from the waterfall model because in every phase of it, there is a related testing stages associated. And in this chapter, you will learn about the V model. So, we must all know about the waterfall model and other model. And in this V model, slight variations are there from correspond to the waterfall model, because waterfall model is a sequential model. But in case of V model, if you do any stages, we must do the testing phase in between each phases. So the V model of SDLC carries out its execution in a sequential manner, and the structure it follows takes the shape of a letter V. This model is also properly termed as the verification and validation model. The V model is also known as verification and validation model. Here each phase has to be finished before beginning the next phase. That means if you do the second phase, we must finish the first phase, and a sequential design progression is followed like that of waterfall model. It will also act like a waterfall model, but the variation is in each phase the testing must be done. This is the structure of V model. It will also contain the requirement analysis, system design, architectural design, module design and coding. But in between that, in each cases, it must also do the testing process. That means in requirement analysis phase, it is also do the acceptance testing, and in system design, do the system testing, architectural design, do the integration testing, and module design, do the unit testing, and also the coding. In parallel to the software development phase, a corresponding series of test phase also run in this model. Each stage comprises a specific type of testing done, and once the testing is passed, only go through the next phase. The verification is the concept in the V model. The static analysis technique is carried out with executing the code, and the evaluation procedure is carried out at the time of development to check whether specific requirement will meet or not. Verification is the process, means if the model is meet the requirement or not, if the final model is meet the requirement or not. And the validation is the process, means the concept of validation. V model comprises of dynamic analysis practice, both functional as well as non-functional, and the testing is done by code execution. The validation of a product is done once the development is complete for determine if the software meet the customer hope or not. Validation is also done after delivering the product. That means if the delivered product is meet the customer needs or not. In design phase contain three activities, that means requirement analysis, lower level design or module design, architectural design, and system design or high level design. Requirement analysis. In this stage of SDLC, a detailed conversion with the customer is made to understand the requirement as well as anticipation, and requirement gathering is another name of this phase. Requirement analysis means collect the requirement from customer. So requirement analysis also called requirement gathering phase. And the next phase is lower level design or module design. This particular phase breaks down the entire product development into tiny modules where each intended module is specified. So it is also termed as lower level design or LLD. This means the entire project can be divided into different modules. Each modules can be developed separately. So this is also called LLD. And the architectural design means the breakdown of a system design to a more detailed version into modules which create different functionalities, and transferring of data and connection between internal and external modules is evidently identified. Architectural design means designing the entire project by using the module version. That means each module can be designed separately and made a connection between each module. That means external modules and internal modules, and it can be identified evidently. And the next phase is system design or high level design. In this phase of SDLC, the system is designed with the entire hardware and the setup is constructed for product development. System design or high level design is the designing phase used for designing the hardware or other part. So these are the four phases in the designing phase. And in testing phase, it also contains the four testing: unit testing, integration testing, and system testing, and user acceptance testing. Unit testing means each modules can be tested individually. And in integration testing, after the unit testing, each module can be combined and tested. So this is called integration testing. So unit testing, during the development of a module design, unit testing is carried out. This plan is executed for eliminating bugs that are found in code at the development of your software. And integration testing, once the unit testing is done, the integration testing is carried out where the integration of module in the system is handled. This testing is done in the architectural designing phase. Integration testing is mainly done in the architectural designing phase. System testing, the ultimate test is done when the entire product is completed and with the functionality, internal dependency requirement, and merging of different modules into single unit. So system testing is basically done after the completing of entire product. If the system is satisfied with the customer needs or not. This is happened in the system testing. User acceptance testing, this type of testing is carried out in front of the user or in user environment where the product will ultimately set up. The UAT particularly tests whether the product is capable enough, launched in the market, or ready to work in the real world. So user acceptance test contains two testing: alpha testing and beta testing. Alpha testing done by the developer and beta testing done by the customer. That means that after delivering the product, if the system will focus on the requirement of customer or not. If the customer requirement will not met in the specific software, then the developer will again done the entire process repeatedly. And these are the four testing in testing phase. This is the main structure of V model. So all of you, I know all of you will understand about the concept of SDLC life cycles. That means V model and iterative model. These are the main concept included in the iterative model and V model. Thank you.